owe it to my clients and my audience to fight the good fight. But my main tagline is without giving up your social life. So I am all about health and wellness, longevity, but with that caveat that I still like to have a social life. So I came up with all these hacks to help play the system.
Today's guest is Brad Williams, certified personal trainer and host of the Over 40 Fitness Hacks podcast. In this episode, Brad shares his practical strategies to stay fit after the age of 40 while still maintaining a fun family and social life.
I like to talk about the 6 buckets that I kind of put everything into: movement, stress, sleep, diet, inflammation. Kind of fine-tuning what you put in your body, what causes inflammation. All of it synergistically has gotten me better results than back to where I was in my late 20s.
All right, my friends, it's Dr. Anthony Balduzzi, and I want to welcome you back to another episode here on the Fit Father Project and the Fit Mother Project podcast. Today, I'm joined by my friend and guest expert, Brad Williams. He is the host of the Over 40 Fitness Hacks podcast, and I had the distinct pleasure of being a guest on his podcast a while back, and I wanted to bring him on because he's literally shot hundreds of episodes talking to amazing guests, let alone his own deep personal experience as a trainer, someone who's run multiple gyms, and is just massively passionate about exactly what I'm passionate about, which is helping the over 40 crowd thrive, have great fitness, have good longevity, and make it work in the context of a busy life. And Brad is a dad himself. He is a husband, so he's walking the walk, and it's going to be really fun to have him on the show today. So Brad, welcome. I'm excited to have a great conversation about over 40 fitness.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dr. Anthony, for having me on the show. And it was a pleasure having you on mine as well, like you said.
Yeah, so I know COVID kind of changed your life in a sense because you were running a lot of like actual physical gyms in Orange County, and then like those kind of shut down for a while. So give us a little insight into what made you get excited about this life of like teaching people online over 40 about this stuff.
Yeah, so just over the last 15 years, being a brick and mortar gym owner, part of the struggle with that is doing everything. I was the accountant for the gym, the bathroom cleaner for the gym, the marketing, the website guy. So it was real hard to like really focus and hone in on, what I was really truly passionate about. And right from the get-go, it was, kind of finding, what gravitated towards me mostly. And I think in Orange County and running our program of doing semi-private training, which was just, 2 to 3 people sharing the cost of a trainer. Because at that time, past the 2008 market crash, it was real hard to afford a private trainer. And just the over 40 crowd seemed to be the thing that was coming through our doors, and got really good at helping them out. At the time, I think I was 28 when I started. And, part of the reason 10 years, 15 years later, going more in the online world and running podcasts is more of the, as I was training all these over 40 clients and, still using a lot of the same methodologies that I used back then. But the kind of the running joke is, at that time, I'm the younger trainer training the over 40 crowd, and they're not getting the results they want. I'm like, come on, man, you gotta diet a little better. You gotta work harder. You gotta put in an extra, gym day in there. And lo and behold, I finally turned 40 3 years ago, and I'm like, oh my God, they were all right. I'm doing more than I used to, and I still can't keep, the body that I was looking for. But, since then, I'm the personal trainer. I refuse to quit. I owe it to my clients and my audience to, fight the good fight. But my main tagline is, without giving up your social life. So I am all about health and wellness, all around longevity, like we talked about on my show with you. But with that caveat that, I still like to have a social life, and, that's what I put out there to my audience. So that's kind of who gravitates towards me. So I came up with all these hacks to help play the system.
Well, I want to spend a big part of our conversation today getting into the hacks that work for you to maintain this like life fun, but also like fitness structured balance. But before we do get there, I kind of want to talk about just like the space generally, like professional to professional. It's an interesting place where there's just like what I consider so much noise out there, so many different things people could be focusing on. And then there's a couple signals that are like important things that maybe the principles are a little more timeless. Like when you describe the landscape of discussions related to health and fitness and maybe like even over 40 stuff, what is the noise? How would you describe it? And what are the important signals that are actually important for people to focus on?
So, a lot of the noise is, there's so much information out there, people doing everything all at once. And that's the worst way to do it. You get the news resolution crowd coming in real hot. I'm going to, work out 7 times a week. I'm going to crush this diet. I already signed myself up for like 2 marathons. All that is just a recipe for disaster. Everything, my mindset kind of changed after 35, after I had a back injury, lifting heavy gym equipment from gym to gym, nothing related to actually working out. And my mindset kind of changed that, our bodies are fragile. We need to slow this down and start listening to it. So that was kind of where I changed from 35. And then, like I said, by the time I hit 40, I started realizing, you can't just do the same things you were doing in your 20s and 30s, and trying to burn your body up. This body's only meant to last so long. And with all the stuff out there with longevity and overall, health for everyone, our minds will be able to make it past 100, but our bodies are so fragile. How are we supposed to do that? So my whole philosophy at 35 switched. And, what I like to preach out there is everyone just slow down, do things more mindfully. If you don't have to go to the gym 6-7 days a week. I personally do 3 days a week, half-hour sessions. And I just do more time under tension, slowing all the exercises down and really focusing on mind-body control and using more muscle fibers for everything. But that's just a small part of what I'm doing. I like to talk about the 6 buckets that I kind of put everything into. And real quickly, those are movement, stress, sleep, diet, and inflammation. And even inflammation has been a new one for me over the last 3 years, and kind of fine tuning what you put in your body, what causes inflammation, all of it synergistically has gotten me better results than probably, back to where I was in my late 20s.
Yeah. And that goes to show, I think those results are possible after 40. It requires a deeper, more holistic understanding. And for example, like you didn't have that inflammation layer in your previous version of knowledge when you were in your 20s because it wasn't relevant.
You didn't need it.
Yeah, it wasn't relevant at that point. But I think that's what happens when we get past 40 is the margin for error gets smaller. The body becomes, like you just see the feedback of doing stuff that's not proper. Like it hurts more, or like you don't have the exact resilience. But then when you get to shore this prime up, you can be great. So let's get into those buckets and maybe give me some of your best hit hacks that you've discovered personally and also through the show of like, what's the best stuff that you've realized? And maybe it's all fits in the lens of how it also fits into a great life and social life too. Let's get into some of your favorite hacks in those areas.
Yeah. So sticking with, weight training, not everyone has to use that. But it is a modality that I've, spent the last 15 years of my life doing. And our whole philosophy as personal trainers is, building lean muscle mass. It's a 3-part pronged series to it, meaning when you're working out, you're stimulating your muscle to grow. You're burning calories while you do it. You're hopefully on a high protein or enough protein diet that your body is burning that protein, and the energy expenditure from that you benefit from. And then ultimately you raise your BMR, or your basal metabolic rate, which means that's how much lean muscle mass you have on your body. You are now burning more calories even at sleep. So that's kind of always been our goal as personal trainers, and it's done very well, for our clients over the years. But you start getting into it a little more, and like I mentioned, adding more time under tension. Not only over 40-year-olds need to be doing this, younger people need to be doing this as well. And it's just something to add in your routine. You don't have to only do this, but, for example, time under tension, doing a squat. Most people try to stack as much weight as they can doing a simple squat and, rep out anywhere from 6 to 12 reps. And with time under tension, you're basically taking half the weight off. And instead of, 1 to 2 seconds finishing that movement, you're taking 5 to 10 seconds to finish that movement. You are only going to get at most 4 to 5 reps of that same exercise. You're going to recruit more muscle fibers while you do it because you're working on the eccentric and the concentric, the slowing it on the way down. People call that negatives as well. And of course, the concentric pushing back up on like a squat. So you're recruiting more muscle fibers, you're getting stronger because it's just a more efficient way to work out. And, spending more time on this type of thing is just putting more quality on it. So you don't have to do as much.
Mm-hmm.
The whole theory when I first started back in my 20s, it's like you have to tear these muscle fibers down with heavy weight to get it to respond, and that's not true. You just need to stimulate enough with your muscle skeletal system to get a hormonal response from your hormonal glands, and you'll adapt. Your body will grow more muscle, and that's the main goal. So going back to slowing everything down, I've had a back injury. I'm sure people in the audience have had similar things, or as you get older, you got the knees and ankles and everything.
Mm-hmm.
When you cut the weight in half and slow everything down, I feel great all the time. I'm
Mm-hmm.
watching my brother, who's just a few years older than me, still working out the same old way and crying about his joints. He just got tennis elbow again, and it just doesn't happen when you're focusing on the lighter weight.
So that sounds great. And that would be like so let's say we're taking a squat. We might now use less weight. We'll lower down. The eccentric lowering portion of the squat might take 5 up to 10 seconds. Are we also going that slow on the way back up in the concentric, or is that a little more explosive or pretty much match pace?
It's pretty much match pace, but I'm kind of more going for 5 seconds down, 5 seconds up. So the
Okay.
total rep takes about 10 seconds.
That makes sense. You do
And
10
maybe,
reps and you're at like a minute and a half of time and retention.
yeah, and then on the way down, maybe holding that position for 1.5 seconds too to really activate more glute muscles.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to do when you have the time to think about it and feel what you're doing. You'd be surprised like how many more muscles are engaged in that same movement that you were doing at a fast pace.
And it's a more mindful way because you're really focusing not just on getting through the number of reps, but the quality of each rep.
Exactly. And then
That's
other
cool.
things come into play too, breathing, diaphragmatic breathing,
Mm-hmm.
holding your rib cage down, breathing through your nose like you're supposed to. Runners always talk about that, but it plays a role in weightlifting too. When you're repping out as fast as you can, it's hard to put all these things together. But when
Mm-hmm.
you got 10 seconds to finish this, you got time to think, about the rest of your day while you're trying to finish this one rep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
Got it. So that's cool on the exercise. Anything on recovery? Any hacks that you like for recovery or speeding that up?
yeah. So, for other hacks for like diet,
Mm-hmm.
I had a great guest that came on my show and was talking about how you've heard all the stuff about all our farming and all the nutrients being taken away, and
Mm-hmm.
we're not eating the same vegetables and fruits with the same antioxidants or minerals.
Yep.
And one cool thing he tasked me with was, do a little count of not just your macros, which I think everyone should do. You don't need to do it every day, but for your micros. So like all your minerals and vitamins.
Mm-hmm.
And, you obviously have to work with a licensed health and wellness expert on that, or your doctor. But for me, I just Googled the RDAs for calcium, magnesium, potassium, all the vitamins, and made a little chart. And just like the person that came on my show told me that almost everyone across the U.S. is deficient in magnesium, calcium, potassium being the biggest one. And of course, sodium will be off the charts.
Yeah,
And
it'll be
even
high in
as a
sodium, low in potassium. Yeah.
yeah, and even as a person who watches my salt intake and everything, there needs to be a ratio of the little bit they say 2-to-1 ratio, but whatever your doctor says. But just saying that you don't have to really cut your sodium down to nothing.
Yeah.
You really need to focus on the potassium. And where do you get that? From dark green leafy vegetables,
Yep.
bananas, coconut
Avocados.
water is a big one, avocados. And then you start fixing some of those things on that chart, and
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden especially with potassium, you start pushing bloat, excess water, because the sodium holds more water than potassium does, and potassium actually gets water into your cells.
Mm-hmm.
So one little hack was, first of all, I slimmed down by 4 pounds of water weight, and potassium helps with all electrical systems in your body. You
Yep.
just feel better. You feel better in the gym. All my muscles look fuller when you're flexing. It just,
Mm-hmm.
that was a huge thing. And things are starting to make more sense as I'm getting more into, podcasting, talking to all these experts, especially about nutrition, of what's happening with our farming and our, minerals that we're taking in. So, which is why, if it'd be great to get it from, whole foods and organic foods, but there is a time where, we just can't do it. So you got to start doing your research on supplementation.
Yep, for sure. And magnesium, are there foods you included to hit more mag? Or do
Yeah,
you supplement with that?
for magnesium, I do supplement just a little bit, but I was doing okay on that one. Dark green vegetables, nuts and seeds. I'm more on a kind of the low carb keto, not full keto. So I like to have things that are low net carbs, and there's certain
Mm-hmm.
seeds that hit those, and also let me hit my magnesium amounts too. And then
Mm-hmm.
one of the biggest ones is just, someone came on my show, and a naturopathic doctor, Dr. Holly Lucille, and her
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing is the best things you can do for yourself is, what do we do? The the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the food we eat. If you
Mm-hmm.
can just focus on that, oh my God, like things start happening. So clean up your water source. Drinking city tap water is probably not the best idea. Whatever filtered water you can get your hands on, but sparklets, as soon as I started switching to sparklets and getting a mineral based water, not only now I'm getting knocking two birds with one stone, but it's just a cleaner, more mountain spring, getting those electrolytes in.
So
Seeing the
that's your family's water solution. You guys get the big Spartlets jugs delivered.
exactly.
Okay.
And then the air you breathe, she was real big on if you have a home that has, an HVAC, there's all these different filters you can get to start cleaning up the air. And that's a big thing because you spend a lot of time in your home and then you sleep for hopefully 8 hours. That's a huge chunk
Mm-hmm.
of the day.
All right.
I'm not on, that pace yet, but that's on the radar. And the other one is just eating, organic things that are pesticides free, or doing
Mm-hmm.
stuff to like help wash and extract all that. There's all that stuff about putting your fruits and vegetables in like a vinegar bath, whether or not you believe that, I think it still gets all the critters and, gunk and dirt out of there, which is just definitely cleaner. And if you check out this website, the Dirty Dozen, if you just Google
Mm-hmm.
that, this environmental agency puts out every year a list of fruits and vegetables that have the highest pesticide count. So they'll throw it through their lab and see which ones have the highest concentrations. And at least if you can't go full organic or pay for it, just find the ones off that list and just knock them out. So for me, it was pretty much all the berries and
Yeah.
apples.
Yeah.
So we would buy those organic, and then everything else go for the cheap stuff, at least for
Yep.
now.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. That's a really great practical hack. Um, I want to talk a little bit about hacks relating to finding balance between fitness and your social life. Is there anything you've realized with free meals, cheat meals, or alcohol, if that's a part of your life? Like how to have occasions while still staying on track, or how does that work?
Yeah. So my thing is, I try to eat clean Monday through Friday. That's most of the days that I'm working anyways and busy with my family, picking up my daughter from school, getting stuff ready. So it's hard to cheat on those days anyway. So I just, those days are my work days. I know that. And then on weekends, that's when I like to have a little bit more fun. So my biggest thing is more, I don't really care about eating bad foods too much. Mine is probably more of the beverage
Mm-hmm.
choices out there, and just learning that beer and wine are the higher calories, more sugar, more of the cleaner distilled spirits are a little bit better, but having rules with that, obviously. And there's this whole thing about tequila being the best choice out of all of them, because the whole problem with alcohol is literally the worst thing for trying to gain lean muscle and keep off fat. So that's kind of, if I can beat and hack the system, then everyone else in America can too. But basically, your body has to process that alcohol first and foremost before anything else you put in your mouth. And the problem is when you're drinking alcohol, that process takes anywhere from 2 to 8 hours. So anything you put in your body immediately goes to your fat storage. So, one hack is, all right, don't eat when you go drink on weekends. Well, I think all of us in our life have done that, and we'll never do that again. So you got to time things, and, plan your meals accordingly when you're going out. And hopefully you already ate before you went out to some restaurant or bar or whatever you're doing, to where you're not stuffing your face while you're doing some of these things. So everything is about kind of just moving things and systems around. And it just starts with education. What am I getting out of this? What is this food or beverage doing to my body? And what am I willing to cope with the after effect? So,
Mm-hmm.
2 days of damage for me is about 4 days of recovery, of getting back to baseline, what I want my weight to be and
Yeah.
everything. And then, add in that extra day to get to the next level.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it totally works. And you realize maybe one day of damage is better, or you just play it. You're always kind of auto regulating.
Exactly. And then, yeah, as you grow older, certain things become worth it or not worth it. And you start, adapting and changing to what works for you for your life. So
So speaking of like, I mean, maybe alcohol's a nice segue into like inflammation. You created a new bucket around that. Like, what did you discover about yourself personally in relation to inflammation? What are the triggers? What seems to help you reduce inflammation, and how do you see signs of inflammation in your body?
yeah, so inflammation kind of started when I hit also 35 and I had my first anaphylactic shock over milk protein, whey protein, and learning, get better quality sources, but also over time. And I think it was probably just abuse from having so much whey concentrate protein powders my whole life that I started growing, these markers for allergens. And just at one point, my body couldn't take anymore at age 35. So hold on a second. Sorry about that. And, I think when we were in 20s, we probably did have bloating and certain allergies, or, would feel a little bit of asthma after eating or drinking certain things. But, in your 20s, you don't care. You're just powering through everything.
Yeah.
Now that hitting 35, 40, you're starting to get pissed off with all these things. So I started noticing not just milk protein. I was allergic to gluten, brewer's yeast. I started doing the blood test to like see what other things that I had that I was allergic to. um, Olives, beef was a big one, and that was a hard one to let go. Because I love my steaks, and every now and then I'll still have it. But you start watching your body and paying attention to it, and you'll start seeing the bloat, the asthma coming in from eating these foods. And after you start clearing these things out, how much better I felt, how much more weight loss I got, how much easier it was in the gym or, any type of cardio I was doing. So, it wasn't just the alcohol on weekends. It was, the daily food. So if you can start attacking as much of these things as you can, that's why I put them into buckets. Instead of just going 7 days a week in the gym, powering through it to wipe out all sins for the week, you have 6 buckets to work on. If you can work on all of them just a little bit, synergistically, you're just in a way better space.
Love it. And I think something you brought up, I love to put a point of emphasis, is the idea of feeling your food sensitivities and allergies through your lungs and your mucus production. Like the bronchoconstriction, as well as the fact that when we get mucus in our throat and our nose, is one of the body's first responses to something it views as a foreign protein. It constricts and it creates mucus to bind things. So if you do find that you have things that make you feel like you're not breathing as well, or that, it's just a really good point of emphasis. It was subtle, but I want to make sure people got that. You can start to pay attention to if your throat feels scratchy, you're clearing your throat a lot after eating something, or your lungs feel constricted, you have a sensitivity to that food. So that's
Yeah.
really great intel.
Or just bloating. I mean, there's
Yeah.
always a normal fullness after eating a meal, and everyone kind of looks at their stomach. Oh, it popped up a little bit, but when it goes into so much
Yeah.
excess that this thing is protruding out
Yeah.
like Santa Claus, something you ate caused that as well. It doesn't have to be
That's
in
wheat
the
for
lungs.
me,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
exactly. For me too,
But
gluten.
yeah. So, but it's interesting. It's like here's where it gets even. There's a new nuance to this. There are certain kinds of wheat that I can eat without that effect. Like if I eat like a ancient einkorn wheat, which is totally different genetics, it still contains gluten protein. I do not get bloated. In fact, I'm lean and I have a lot of energy versus a
Yeah.
different kind of wheat. So there's so many subtleties to this. The body's complex.
I
Um,
on the gluten subject, there's stuff out there. They say in Europe it's not the gluten, it's the pesticides you guys in America put on it, and that's what you're having the sensitivity to. And then I heard that if you have a sensitivity to brewer's yeast or yeast in general, that's what you're actually allergic to, not the gluten. But it seems like all three of those are in every single carbohydrate product out there.
basically.
So for me, it's just cut them all out. I don't care. I get no reaction now. And
Let's talk about like what you and your family do for like creating a healthy environment for your kid and just like a healthy household. Is there any guiding principles you have as a parent to help instill healthy values in your family and as a husband too?
yeah, so I mean, one thing is I'm kind of my wife's more of the breadwinner. I'm more of the kind of the house husband that takes care of the house and does the grocery shopping, all that kind of stuff. So I try to pick, as much organic stuff as we can afford. Like I said, we do the mineral water and make sure that my daughter's drinking that and not the fridge water or tap water.
Mm-hmm.
But other things too, like I mentioned, doing a little vinegar wash on vegetables and berries, and then putting it back in the fridge with a little paper towel in there. And I'm telling you, like I said, whether or not you believe it pulls the pesticides right out of the fruit and vegetables, I don't know. But then what you see coming in that water, that's just something I'm not going to let my daughter put in her body either. And also, mostly for the berries, when you do this kind of prep work, dude, these berries usually would last 2 to 5 days and just be rotten in the fridge. Everyone knows berries are the hardest ones. After doing these washes, these things last 1 to 2 weeks. So
Wow.
it's just, if you're going to buy this, do the prep work of cleaning it. Just one, it's healthier for you. And two, it's going to last longer. You can stop throwing stuff away.
Okay, explain this to us because I think I want people to really understand this now because clearly this is a point of emphasis in your routine. What do I do? Do we put like white vinegar and water and soak things in it, or like how does it work?
Yeah, so I just fill up like a little big salad bowl full of water, and if you Google it, there's probably a correct ratio. But I just put a cap full of vinegar, white vinegar in there,
Yeah.
and stir it all around, and then I'll put the berries in one at a time. So, and now because of this, they're lasting long. I'll buy a bigger amount of strawberries, bigger amount of blackberries, blueberries, and individually, wash them just for like a minute or two, let them dry on some paper towels, and then I'll put them right back in the containers that they came in with a little paper towel in there. So any moisture, will kind of seep into that paper towel. And then also it's in its, air filtered casing that you bought it in. So it has room to breathe as well.
Okay, that's
And
cool. And
unreal. You can buy massive amounts now and it lasts double the time.
that is a definition of a hack.
Yeah.
Now people are going to be washing their strawberries. That's cool. I like that a lot. Okay. Do you do anything within like biohacky stuff? Do you believe in saunas, cold plunges, different kinds of light, blocking blue light, any kind of hacks to that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned back in my 20s, talking about building lean muscle, you got to tear all your muscle fibers down, and learning later in life that that's not how it works. Everything, your whole body works on stressors. So it's just the workout that's stressing your body enough to get that adaptation. So started messing around with, saunas, not to mention I feel great while doing it, but it's just, you're adding a new stressor to your body that it's making you uncomfortable. And I'm seeing the results afterwards. I feel better. I'm looking better. Cold plunging, I recently started doing that. And as far as I love hearing all the people talk about the endorphins and your dopamine levels going like crazy, setting you up right for the day. I don't feel any of that. What I do feel is that my body feels fantastic. My lower back, all the stiffness gone from my previous injury. My joints all feel great. My body just feels great, but I don't get that high that everyone talks about. But I do believe in the stressors and all the longevity proteins that can happen in your body when it's stressed. One of the biggest things I started doing was, I started off with intermittent fasting, and it's not for everybody, but it felt great for me. So I was slowly closing down my window eating times, and I was seeing the results, midsection and everything. And one of the things, I was running it through my doctor. So when I was doing the intermittent fasting, we were watching that, and I got a little benefit off my blood work. But when I started doing the longer, I worked my way up to it, but found out that 36 hours was my max of doing like a long fast. And I was doing it like every other week or every 3 weeks for just a 3-month period. And then my doctor checked my blood work. I mean, I never had bad blood work. It was, decent. But to put me in that next upper echelon, my triglycerides were insanely low. My testosterone had shot up back to like my 18 year old self.
Wow.
And cholesterol was never, everyone's fighting over what cholesterol should be and all that. But as long as your good cholesterol's up there with your total cholesterol, it just means you're burning fat for fuel, which, I'm on a more of a keto diet. It's going to be like that. But just from, the reductions that he saw and everything, he couldn't believe it. So I'm a big believer.
And what was the frequency you're doing the 36-hour fast?
I was doing it like every other week starting. Then I kind of slowed it into every third week over the
Okay.
course of 3.5 months, I think.
Nice.
But then later I started just doing once a month. And 6 months later, I took my blood work again, and everything was exactly the same. So I think
Nice.
that was just a good starter just to get me going. But from now, my once a month that I'm doing it, I have not seen any reversal in any of my blood work lab results.
Love that. All right. Next question is, are there any supplements that you believe in or take on a regular basis?
Yeah, so for supplements, I like trying to get everything from whole foods first, and then you supplement to that. So, like I said, I was just a little short on magnesium, a little bit more short on calcium because I don't do dairy, and potassium. I try to get as much stark leafy green vegetables, but to get the amount that my doctor decided I needed to get that 2-to-1 ratio, I ended up having to do like an electrolyte that was real high in potassium drink to kind of hit those markers. Um, Other than that, the main thing I preach is, in my world of building lean muscle mass, is having a higher amount of protein,
Mm-hmm.
and it is just impossible to hit the amount that all these calculators say you should have, or even if you try to get close. All of this work, it's hard enough to get breakfast before we go to work and getting our snacks and meals. I just Almost every single one of my clients and family members eventually take a protein shake. So
Yeah.
my biggest thing on protein shake is find one that you like, find the best quality one. Concentrate is garbage. That's what started me off with my allergy to milk protein. Get more of the isolate. It's a little bit better and cleaner. And then for me, I picked one because it was a really low carb, net carb one,
Mm-hmm.
and it was pea protein. So a good chunk of my daily intake is coming from two big shakes that I take that are vegan,
Mm-hmm.
and then I only have like really one meal after that is meat. So I really cut my meat intake down, which I think is another inflammatory marker as well. So knock a couple birds with one stone.
For sure. And I'll just echo that. Like, we're big believers in that inside of our programming because, one, like to hit the protein targets, it's nice to have a meal that is not very heavy. It doesn't take a lot of digestive stress. You can get a lot of good nutrients in there when you blend it up, and you just get a great protein powder. Like, we have our super fuel protein, which we like because it has all the vitamins and minerals and probiotics on top of the protein. But yeah, it's a huge tool, very helpful. Do you take any vitamin D, fish oil, probiotics, any stuff like that, or
Oh
not
yeah.
necessarily?
So I take a omega-3 tablet 3 times a week. Um, I take vitamin D daily with K2.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big one because, running all these gyms, and even still now, I'm doing more of a gig worker, on my laptop, and my wife is too. We rarely get out and go on walks, get sunlight. We're trying, but you're just not getting the amount of vitamin D that you need, and you
Mm-hmm.
can't get it from food. So supplementation has been huge because, starting with that, your energy levels just go back to just an awesome baseline of being
Mm-hmm.
able to function. And it just gives you more motivation. And man, if I feel this good on just a little bit of supplement of it, let me go get the real stuff. So, I try to get outside and at least lay out for, 15 minutes
Mm-hmm.
and get some real sunlight. But that has been huge. I think another one I'm just trying, I met them on my podcast, and it was a company called Oxford Health, and they're repping a supplement called spermidine.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it for sure. It has some action on some stem cells and stuff like that.
Yeah, and kind of the thing that hit me up there was I was trying to biohack and looking for, I'm 43 now. I'm starting to get the grays coming in, and I'll be like, man, it'd be real nice to kind of reverse that. And that's been one of the side effects of taking the spermidine supplement. Not only with the higher cognitive function, inflammatory properties, but kind of restoring the melatonin in the melanin in your hair, and getting that cycle going again. And I've been on it for a month. And I swear to God, I've got less patchy. I don't know. I'll make my judgment on the next haircut I get. But I love, just as long as I'm keeping my doctor involved and telling him what I'm doing. Just love biohacking little things like that to just test things out before I talk about it.
Love that. And I guess my final question for you is kind of asking you as a dad, outside of like good nutrition and water, is there anything that you do? It's your daughter, right? Is there
Yeah.
anything you do for her that, like, around technology or around sleep habits? Like, What do you think is important for her and for kids to keep them healthy as best we can?
Yeah. So besides diet, which we already talked about, I think one of the biggest things is, kicking them off the tablets if you are using that, and electronics. Whether or not we do it, we're a little bit older. Whatever damage has been done, I'm sure we can reverse some of it. But at least give your kids the best shot they have. So cut those things off as soon as you can. We keep her room really dark with blackout shades, so she just gets like the best sleep. Mm-hmm. And she probably sleeps like 10 hours. Mm-hmm. And it's still hard waking her up in the morning. But other than that, just helping her, keeping her active. It helped at 2 years ago when I still had my last gym. I was a gym owner. I would let kids come in and that kind of stuff. So she would come to our Sunday boot camp. It was a cool way to get her all excited about, health and fitness and that kind of stuff. And she did great. Now we don't have that, but, whatever chance I can get to get her out and do sports or just do things that are athletic. Like I'm not a big proponent of pushing my kid to play soccer or, gymnastics or whatever. My thing is, if she wants to do that later in life, that's fine. My job as a personal trainer is just keep her athletic. So we do like, sprints in the park. I have her doing ladder drills and all that kind of stuff. Cause it doesn't matter. An athlete's an athlete, whatever sport, if she does pick one later, she'll absolutely crush it.
Yeah. That's a cool way of thinking about it, is just helping your kid through general fitness, not through the lens of a particular sport.
One sport,
and then her interests are going to just blossom in whatever way they do. And you guys get to connect on something that's so core to your foundational values. Yeah.
And then if all else fails, she doesn't want to do any sports, well, you're welcome. You got a nice, healthy body. Take that and ruin it in college, whatever you're going to do with
it. Brad, this is awesome. I appreciate all your wisdom. As I mentioned in the intro, that you have your podcast, Over 40 Fitness Hacks. So if people enjoyed this and they want to explore more about what you're doing, they can find you there. So please tell us again how people can connect with you past this conversation.
Yeah. So like you said, my podcast, Over 40 Fitness Hacks, it's 40, not spelled out. And the same thing for my website, over40fitnesshacks.com, 40, not spelled out. And pretty much that's all I got, because I really hate doing social media. I'm not on anything except for Twitter. But easiest way is just to hit me up on the podcast or my website.
Nice. Well, Brad, thanks for your time and your insight today. I think that people are going to be washing their strawberries with white vinegar, checking out spermidine. I don't know. I got a couple notes. So thank you for that. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Fit Father Project podcast. If you love what you heard, please rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts. It really helps spread this show to more men who need this valuable info. To watch full video episodes of this podcast and other motivational videos to inspire your training and more, visit our Fit Father Project YouTube channel. It's free and everything's made for busy guys over 40 like you. Visit youtube.com/Fit Father Project to get access to our entire video library. And finally, if you or someone in your life is interested in becoming a fit father or needs help losing weight, building muscle, and living healthier after age 40, then visit fitfatherproject.com, where you can see our proven programs, supplement line for guys 40 plus, and free meal plan and workouts to get you started. This is Dr. Anthony Balduzzi signing off. I'll see you in the next episode.